who have been with us for a number of minutes. Thank you as we organize our connectivity with our esteemed guest from all the way from Russia. So thank you, Dr. Vladimir Kozin. My name is Patricia Maria Weinman, and I'm the Associate Coordinator of Radius at MIT. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you here. For a full listing of this semester-long seminar program, please visit our website at radius.mit.edu. I would now like to introduce Subrata Ghosh-Roy, a longtime colleague and good friend of ours at Radius. Subrata is the organizer of this seminar and will act as moderator. Subrata is a former U.S. Congressional Science Fellow and a member of the professional staff of the U.S. House Armed Services Committee. In addition to his position as a research affiliate in MIT's program in Science, Technology, and Society, he's currently a visiting professor at the Tokyo Institute of Technology. And again, Subrata will now introduce our esteemed guest, Dr. Vladimir Kozin. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Trish, for the introduction. Just a few words about, before we start Vladimir's presentation. We organized this seminar, of course, on very limited resources, but with tremendous help from people like Patricia Weinman, who just spoke, Christina English, who's also online, are the two people who made this really possible, and also my program, Science, Technology, and Society at MIT. The head of the department of the program is Dr. Jennifer Light, and Jennifer was very kind to give us a very small financial support to help this along. So we have a long series, a semester long, and today is really the kickoff with Vladimir at such an important topic. You can go visit our website at the radius.mit.edu and get a glimpse of all these seminars that will be going on. We had one on Kashmir last week, but this is really the beginning of the main series, a sort of Tuesday lunchtime brown bag. Well, you can bring your own brown bag to the lunch. And we have today Vladimir Kozin, who is one of the most respected Soviet and Russian analysts today on international affairs. And Vladimir has very long experience in international affairs. He's a corresponding member of 2 Russian academies, and he advises the highest levels of decision-making in foreign policy in the Duma and in Kremlin, and specializing also on the US-Russia relations. So we are at such a juncture with the US-Russia relations, especially with the nuclear weapons. I will just try to make a few comments. I would say that the world has reached perhaps one of the most dangerous points in the history of the nuclear weapons. Anybody familiar with the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist would know that this doomsday clock has moved ever closer to the doomsday. Russia ceased to be a communist state 3 decades ago, but in Washington, that news hasn't reached. We are still fighting the old nemesis of the Cold War era. There's no doubt that Russian national security interests and US national security interests or global interests don't gel or don't coincide all the time. And there are serious conflicts with Russia in Syria, in Eastern Europe, like in Belarus today, in Ukraine and Armenia, and there's several hotspots. And but that does not mean we cannot manage these conflicts like we manage with other countries. Let me just give you one point of reference, that Russia is not the Soviet Union. It doesn't have the power and the global reach of the former Soviet Union. It has a military budget that's $60 billion, 60. the US military budget this year is going to be $740 billion, 12 times more than the Russian. So this big Russian bear is actually quite small. And, but yet, where do we find ourselves in this continuing Cold War battle? We do not have any nuclear treaty. The last surviving one is the New START treaty, which is about to expire in February. And from all, and Vladimir will talk about it, of course. And we do not have the INF treaty. We have a tremendous crisis with the non-proliferation treaty, with discrimination going on with members of the non-proliferation treaty, like Iran, who is punished with sanctions, whereas countries like India or Pakistan, or of course Israel, are treated very favorably. And finally, there is another thing that is going on beyond people's, it's off the radar, so to speak, is the missile defense deployment. And I have just written about the problems with the missile defense in the last issue of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, and about the kind of money we have spent on a totally ineffective, inappropriate system that is wasting so much money and causing so much trouble with Russia and China. So you will hear all about all of this. And because Vladimir is in a little bit difficult situation because he's visiting his mother in Kaliningrad, so he's not in his regular place of work in Moscow, and we have some issues with the connection. So I will stop here. There'll be plenty to discuss, and I will turn it over to Dr. Vladimir Kozin.
Well, my dear colleagues, Patricia and Subrata, well, thank you very much for your kind words and introduction. And thank you for organizing this webinar for the first time between our communities, between our academic circles, and I'm very happy to take part in it. In my introduction, I would like to tackle some burning issues, especially in arms control, and would be very happy to respond to any of your questions, even if they are very difficult to respond. Well, I would like to ask you, Subrata, to open the first slide of mine, which describes 13 major differences existing in arms control between Moscow and Washington currently. This is a very big stock. It has, this list has what not. The possibility to extend New START Accord, which is nearly possible, actually impossible, I should stress. It's also deployment of tactical nuclear weapons of the United States and Europe. It's also a desire to deploy newly emerged INF nuclear tip missiles in Europe and in Asia. Also the problem dealing with the low yield nuclear warheads. Too many patrols of US heavy bombers in Europe, and the existing of medium range dual capable aircraft in terms of Special Air Force operation of NATO called Baltic Air Policing, which started in March 2004 in 3 Baltic republics. Plus, there is no commitment between our 2 giant nuclear powers to commit to no first use or no first strike of nuclear weapons versus each other. There is another issue related to INC Accord, which is Incidents at Sea Prevention Agreement, which does not cover any type of submarines while submerged. There is an issue dealing with a potential ratification of the Comprehensive Test-Ban Treaty by the United States. We have done it 2,000 years ago, in the year 2000. There is also issue concerning missile defense system. And colleague Subrata, you mentioned this fact. It's a double-hatted system which can use both offensive and defensive systems at the same time in the same tubes. There is also no possibility of signing of Conventional Forces in Europe Treaty number 2, second variant. And dealing with the outer space, there is a problem of signing prevention of arms race in outer space and no first placement of weapons in space. So could you please turn the slideshow to the second one? There are 13 arms control treaties and agreements existing on the bilateral or multilateral basis, either between us, between the United States and the Russian Federation, and on the world at large. Unfortunately, we are witnessing that a number of cases of violating this kind of treaties, especially INF Treaty, which was violated, we have counted, by the United States 117 times during the last 20 years of its existence. Also, withdrawal of our American colleagues from the INF Treaty itself, and from Iranian nuclear deal as well. There is a lack of desire to ratify a number of treaties, and I have mentioned the CTBT, or Comprehensive Test-Ban Treaty. And the final brush, the refusal of Washington to debate with us a number of other draft treaties in the sphere of arms control, namely European Security Treaty and the Treaty of putting some limits on missile defense systems, not to send it very close to the territory of the opposing numbers. Please, next slide. I have mentioned this slide already, made a comment on this slide. So please open up the second one, next one, please. It's called 14 Reasons of Using Nuclear Weapons. Unfortunately, I must confess that while reading very attentively the existing NPR, or Nuclear Posture Review, signed in 2018, I have found out that the current US military strategy has 14 cases or reasons or pretexts of using nuclear weapons, while the Russian Federation has only 2. Out of these 14 cases of using nuclear weapons, 6 of them are quite understandable. If you look on the upper level of this slide, you will see that they are quite workable, because in response to prevent attacks, etc., etc. But unfortunately, in the second half of this chart, you will see rather a vague formula or sentences permitting the United States to use nuclear weapons under rather rubber excuses. I mean, rubber excuses that can be interpreted or extended indefinitely and very loosely. For example, operational shortfalls, or during unexpected challenges, or due to technical challenges, or due to technological breakthroughs outside the United States. But what kind of them? We cannot still understand what is behind of this vague sentences, pretext and formulas. So next slide, please. I have mentioned already the INF Treaty. Unfortunately, the treaty which existed a long time ago does not exist. But we would like to revive it. To revive it with the United States on a new ground, not to emplace the same kind of nuclear weapons in Europe or in Asia on the basis of reciprocity. Next slide, please.
Next slide.
Yeah, waiting for the next slide. Yes, this chart shows who has violated the INF Treaty and how many times. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Look, it's a very dangerous situation in nuclear arms control because a number of so-called non-strategic or tactical nuclear warheads, namely from B61 family, exactly B61-7, 11, and the newcomer 12, B61-12, are considered both at the Pentagon and the State Department as tactical or non-strategic and at the same time strategic nuclear weapons, if they are carried, if they are loaded on board of heavy strategic bombers, which has much longer flying distance rather than medium range dual capable aircraft. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Look, what we have currently. I will summarize. Where do we stand now? Look, last century we called a century of nuclear age, when nuclear weapons appeared. Currently, we have 9 nuclear weapon states. But today, in the current century, we are witnessing two types of other arms control, other arms race phenomena, namely arms race in outer space and appearance of hypersonic, high-tech hypersonic weapon, which can perform also strategic missions. So at the end of my remarks, I would like to suggest to all of you 7 potential ways what to do, 7 steps to ameliorate the situation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Just omit it again. Next slide, please. Again, next. Okay, in yellow, right? Yes, leave it. 7 potential steps. Yes, 7 potential steps. What to do? First of all, by our 2 great nations, the United States of America and the Russian Federation. The first step out of these 7 is very simple. It will cost nothing to us. It's a commitment of no first use or no first strike of nuclear weapons against each other. We have already made a step forward in this direction when in mid-90s we have signed together on bilateral basis detargeting agreements, meaning that we do not target our nuclear missiles, strategic missiles first and foremost, to the respective territories of each other. So why not to commit to no first use or no first strike weapons as a sample or as example to other nuclear weapon states? As to extension of the New START, recently the US official delegation put forward 3 preconditions for the potential extension of the New START. The first precondition was dealt with the additional verification mechanism. The second was dealt with the proliferation of the commitment of the New START Accord to tactical nuclear weapons. And the third one to ask the People's Republic of China to join our talks on the potential reduction of strategic offensive arms. I have to confess, my dear colleagues, that Moscow has declined these 3 preconditions because they are unacceptable. First of all, we have not heard any detailed explanation what does it mean 3 preconditions. Second factor is that we have already agreed to a vast range of verification mechanism applied to our strategic offensive nuclear arms. Look, there is disparity in this inspections because the Russian Federation has intercontinental ballistic missiles on mobile installations, so mobile ICBMs, while the United States of America doesn't have this mobile ICBMs, only fixed ICBMs on the ground. Second issue, tactical nuclear weapons. We will confront with this issue from many angles. The first angle is that there is no proper and agreeable definition of tactical nuclear weapons. We currently have 7 different definitions of tactical nuclear weapons. The second factor is that the United States doesn't want to withdraw its all tactical nuclear weapons from European countries plus Asian part of Turkey. And there is also a problem dealt with the tactical nuclear weapons. What to do with the delivery systems carrying this T and W? Shall we proliferate the new accord on medium-range tactical aircraft or only for strategic offensive heavy bombers? So this is the end of my preface, my preliminary remark, and I will be happy to listen to your comments and to put me any questions you so desire, however sharp or pricky they might be. Yes, I would be very happy to answer them all. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
May I ask you to speak very slowly because of the time difference and big difference in terms of distance between us and the city of Kaliningrad on the Baltic Sea coast. Yes, I'm ready.
Thank
My
you.
colleague Subrata, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Patricia, please.
Thank you, Vladimir. At this time, we have no questions, but for our audience, there is a Q&A option on this webinar, and please do type in your questions.
Okay, so now that we have, first of all, thank you, Vladimir, for making very concise and relatively brief but concise presentation with a lot of information for people to digest.
My pleasure, Subrata.
One of the things that, of course, are talked about here are, like you have listed the Russian view of the violations of the INF, about the tactical nuclear weapons and so forth. And the US has also its view of Russian violations. Is there anything you want to add about why Russia does not consider the US allegations of Russian violations, especially in regards to the missiles deployed in Kaliningrad and cruise missiles and other things related to INF and the tactical nuclear weapons? The US position is that we do not know how many tactical nuclear weapons really are possessed by Russia, and that so the 200 or so that we have now in Europe, in Turkey, we have a count, and we do not have a count on the Russian side. And the third thing I would say, if this is unrelated, is some comments about the situation in outer space, because we had a Russian test, or as the US is calling it, a Russian anti-satellite test in July, or I forget now which month, but it was, and Russia is calling it an inspection satellite, and the US is saying Russia fired a projectile. So it'll be great to hear some of these things directly from your point of view. Thank you.
Yeah, so brother, you have already stockpiled me with a lot of questions, but let's start from the very beginning. Well, as to the Kaliningrad Russian exclave I'm now sitting in, it's up to us to decide what kind of missiles to deploy on our own territory. Second issue is that very close to the Kaliningrad region in Poland, we are witnessing the continuation of construction of missile defense operational base in Etredzikowo, near Słupsk, in the relatively speaking up north part of Poland, very close to the Baltic Sea. We also have spotted that the US heavy bombers used Polish airfield to stay for a while and then go to very close to the Russian borders, especially near the Black Sea and the Azov Sea. As to tactical nuclear weapons, well, these figures you have mentioned, and many experts are mentioning yesterday and today, and will mention tomorrow, are not so reliable, simply because neither Moscow or Washington have already exchanged official data concerning tactical nuclear weapons. We only were able to identify the percentage of the downside of tactical nuclear weapons from unknown level of tactical nuclear weapons. But as soon as we start forging a new treaty on downsizing or on limiting tactical nuclear weapons, naturally, we will exchange this kind of data when, for example, we have done while we have signed the INF treaty. We identified both shorter range and medium range nuclear missiles, as well as when we have reached agreements on offensive, on the strategic offensive arms, limitations and then reductions from SALT to START. So the problem will be, as I said, that in geographical terms, our tactical nuclear weapons, I mean the Russian Federation tactical nuclear weapons, are stored exclusively on the Russian territory. while the United States tactical weapons is deployed both in the CONUS and outside the CONUS, in Europe, in 4 NATO member countries, Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, and the Federal Republic of Germany, plus Asian part of Turkey. Yes, what to do with that? We still do not know, and we have not started any negotiations on tactical nuclear weapons. But in the future, we have to tackle this issue because it's inalienable part and parcel of the nuclear weapons stockpile. As to militarization of space, unfortunately, this issue has not been resolved so far. We were very happy when the ex-president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, in 1970s initiated Assad reduction talks with us. But when we covered 4 rounds of these negotiations, the American delegation decided and informed us that they will not go to continue with such talks because the Soviet side, that time Soviet Union was existing, wanted to identify specific hostile acts in outer space that should be prohibited. But when we tabled this kind of category of terminology and the description of such acts, violent acts, unfriendly acts, the United States simply canceled these talks for good, forever. They have never been repeated again. As to using Assad weapons by a number of spacefaring nations, because of the non-existence of Assad limitations, any nation in the world having special facilities in space can use Assad capabilities because there are no limitations. But when the limitations are forged or hammered out, certainly there should be limitations on Assad systems. And our motto is very simple, to prohibit systems that can hit space-based assets, and to control and prohibit systems that are based in outer space but can be used against targets located on the Earth, on the ground, or in the air, or in the atmosphere, or in the world oceans. So, but all these issues have not been resolved yet. And I have mentioned 13 unresolved issues. This is too much. Unfortunately, when the Russian President Vladimir Putin tabled an offer to all 5 nuclear powers to organize a special meeting at the premises of the current US General Assembly session in New York City. But this idea has not been implemented simply because of the coronavirus infection. Many world leaders, including the leaders of P5, made video prepared statements from the screen at the UN General Assembly session. But this is not a nuclear summit to tackle this nuclear arms control issues. But the human race, sooner or later, should start debating this issue. Look, last August, a new surge of anti-nuclear movement has appeared. It drafted a special appeal addressed to all 9 nuclear weapon states to dismantle and destroy all nuclear weapons globally and irreversibly by the August 6, 2045, a centenary of using nuclear weapons 100 years ago in 1945 by the United States against Japan. Well, I have seen that this appeal has already collected nearly 10,000 signatures, both from individuals and from various NGOs. But that's not too much. And I'm very concerned that not so big number of people have subscribed to this appeal, which is logical and very simple, and it has been already translated into several foreign languages, besides English, French, Russian, Chinese, Korean, Hebrew, Hindi, excuse me, Urdu, French as well, and German. Well, it devotes special attention. That's probably, I have finished my response to your questions, my dear colleague Subrata.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
We do have some questions. There's a follow-up in the space weapons arena. And someone asks, how about an international understanding or agreement prohibiting attacks by every country on any, quote, asset, unquote, in space delivered by the launching country at the time of the launch to be declared a non-military asset with full details of its purpose and parameters? Would that be a practical way to proceed in terms of being specific rather than general?
Yes, it should be tackled under special agreement during special talks between spacefaring nations that have capabilities to launch such satellites or such assets in outer space.
And there are two questions regarding China. The U.S. nuclear-powered warship strategy is almost entirely to address the Chinese nuclear and missile forces, and much less against Russia. So the best solution is that Russia persuades and pressures China to join a new INF treaty or other arms control talks.
Yes, clear. Thank you very much. As to the People's Republic of China, the response is very simple. If compared with the strategic offensive arms of the Russian Federation on one hand, and the same number of strategic offensive arms of the United States of America, that is under the current New START treaty, has the ceiling of 1,550 warheads and 700 operational deployed delivery systems. The Chinese side has only 300 of such capabilities, so 5 times less than any of us. So their position is crystal clear. We together, Washington and Moscow, first have to limit our SOA assets to the ceilings the People's Republic of China currently has. The second story related to this issue, Russia cannot persuade the People's Republic of China to join the respective arms control talks. Look, Washington has imposed anti-Russian sanctions against several hundred enterprises, against several hundred of individuals. Look, if a person just deliver you a blow into your face, how can you help those person to resolve his own issues with other colleagues. So it's not a proper behavior asking us from Washington to use our authority and our excellent relationship with Beijing, because in the human world, in the human communication, any offender of yourself cannot ask you to help the offender in his difficult situation. He or she just came into booby trap created by himself or herself. So that's our view. And as to the new START treaty, the People's Republic of China cannot physically be included into the existing new START, because it's a very limited time left before it will die out. It will expire on the 5th of February next year. As to START, the newest START after the death of START 3 in Russian, or the new START, it's a big question. But the People's Republic of China definitely will wait till we agree to the further reductions of strategic offensive arms, when we agree to the limitations of missile defense system, and when Washington and Moscow agree for a restrained policy in outer space, not to weaponize it, and to use it exclusively for peaceful purposes. I'm not talking about a prohibition of, so to say, non-combat military vehicles in outer space, like working for navigational system, for traffic control, for assessing harvesting, etc. Communication satellites, which are actually innocent. They cannot kill the respective satellites at all. But what we are talking, we are against of emplacement of space-based strike combat assets in outer space, because it will create a mess, not only on in space, but on the Earth as well. Studio?
Thank
Patricia?
you. Yes, thank you.
My pleasure.
We have a question, I think, which is on many of our minds. Do you expect any improvement in the situation with a change of an administration in Washington?
No, unfortunately, I must confess, no, it's my personal opinion, no, I don't think that after your presidential elections, God permits, will be held on the 3rd of November this year, any person who will be elected by the Americans will continue anti-Russian policy for many decades to come. It doesn't matter who will win, the Republican candidate or the Democratic Party candidate. The policy will be the same. And I don't know what our great nations have to do to change this cul-de-sac position, deadlocked position. Very difficult impasse we are still confronted. When we are at the risk of unleashing not only a limited local nuclear war, but an all-out war, which will destroy the civilization completely, entirely. It doesn't matter who will start this nuclear attack, the first or the second or the third, etc. 9 nuclear powers on our planet is too much. We have to do something.
Thank you. Someone is asking about what specific circumstances does Russia envision when its nuclear weapons would be used? Would it only be in retaliation of a nuclear attack against it, or also perhaps a chemical or biological attack?
We are against of using nuclear weapons in the first strike. Our updated, currently and recently updated nuclear strategy clearly stated that we are against using nukes as the first blow in the first attack. I mean, we can use only as a retaliation, as the second strike in defense, in two actually cases. When we are attacked by nuclear weapon state, we have not identified what kind of them, or we also will retaliate if we are attacked by using non-nuclear or conventional weapons, but with only specific excuse when this conventional attack will endanger the very existence of the Russian state. But in the last century, we have not witnessed such attempts to destroy Russia completely after the invention and construction and deployment of nuclear weapons after 1945. And we will be very unhappy if any of us from 9 nuclear weapon states will use nuclear weapons even in a limited, very limited nuclear strike against each other. That's why we are still committed to no first use commitment or no first strike commitment signed by Washington and Moscow. By the way, we are having this no first strike clause with the People's Republic of China. And and 2 NATO nuclear allies of the United States, namely the United Kingdom and France, you have also no non-first use of nuclear weapons between each other because you are allies. You're formidable allies, very close comrades in arms. So that's it, Patricia.
Thank you. I would like to ask a question for both of you, I think. This dire situation between the two nations, what could change that dynamic? What is possible?
There are several ways to improve the situation. First of all, grassroots people, rank and file people all over the world should persuade the governments in their own countries and the countries outside their borders to live in peace and to avoid any confrontation, any hostilities, anything that could suddenly trigger on a wide or wide-scale conventional war or nuclear war. Second, the world leaders, including 9 all-nuclear weapon states, after the end of this coronavirus infection, should sit together and communicate with each other, not from the screen of a TV, but eye to eye in tete-a-tete atmosphere, and to persuade each other and to start to open a new chapter in the current civilization. We have to save the succeeding generations from any scourge of wars. if I may paraphrase the UN Charter. But we have sit and talk very frankly with figures, with arguments, with only one mandate and commitment. Let's change the world for the better. We do not deserve any hostilities, any wars, any conflicts at all. We have to leave this wonderful world to our children, to our grandchildren, etc., totally new, totally peaceful, and fighting only for the well-being, fighting poverty, fighting bad medical treatment, lack of resources, fighting for better climatic conditions, etc. But let's forget hostilities, wars, hatred, lack of trust, lack of confidence. Let it be human in all this positive connotation and feeling. Let us be all 100% real Homo sapiens, human beings. Patricia?
Thank you. Someone is asking, what American interest is served, in your opinion, by U.S. reluctance to no first use, even before the changes in nuclear postures were made by the Trump administration?
Unfortunately, the current nuclear posture review of the United States does not permit even to tackle this issue completely. So I don't know. It's not very easy to change this wording in the current nuclear posture review, but probably in several years to come, any future American president, be it Republican person or from diplomatic party, will change this kind of political obligation and military formula. But currently, seemingly, I don't see such a possibility at all. Patricia, Subrata?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that that's very correct. That it's also somewhat bureaucratic in the military that this has been the policy, and this belief that we don't want to constrain ourselves, that is the United States, in any way whatsoever, whether it is the development of the missile defense systems or any other weapons, that we don't want any constraints on our abilities. And they will also say that this so-called NFU, or no first use pledge, is not worth the paper it's written on. So nuclear war, if one wants to start, will start regardless of whatever pledge or even treaties we have. Because if we feel our national security is a grave threat, then we will use whatever capabilities we have, and we often threaten the use of nuclear weapons, even in smaller scales and whatever. So I think it's very much married into the US national security thinking and doctrine about this. We don't want to give this up, this no first use. And there is, as you correctly point out, that it can only change if nuclear weapons enters into the vocabulary, into the conversation. This election campaign is going on. Obviously, it's dominated by pandemic and mask or no mask, but we do not hear anything about nuclear weapons or the crisis we are facing with Russia in this regard. I mean, of course, there is a lot of vilifying of Russia in many respects, and I'm not going to hold the brief for Russian president or its policies, but at the same time, this is a constant in American politics in this election with the cyber interference, cyber attacks on Democratic National Committee, and so forth. So I just want to have a little positive note in that. And I was thinking about it, that even at the height of the Cold War, the dialogue on nuclear weapons, arms control, did not stop. And the greatest example was the Kissinger-Nixon back channel through Anatoly Dobrinin, the Soviet ambassador in Washington.
Yes, right.
And then the culmination of Nixon visiting Moscow in 1972 and signing the ABM treaty with General Secretary Brezhnev. So,
yes.
But this is a very different situation when we have no communication.
Yeah. Yes, we are just closing our session. May I have my final remarks?
Oh,
Yes.
please, we
Well,
have actually time, but you are going into the dark, so I understand.
Yeah.
May I ask one more question from
yes,
someone?
Please do, Patricia. Come on.
It's been waiting here. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, adopted in 2017, will enter into force 90 days after it's been ratified by at least 50 countries and regions. According to ICANN, 4 additional signatories can be expected shortly. What effect do you expect this to have on the situation going forward?
Well, it would be very nice if the treaty you mentioned, Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, will be enacted and will enter into existence, because sooner or later the human race will understand that there is no calm and quiet life sitting on nuclear powder keg. And people will understand that sooner or later nuclear weapons should be dismantled, destroyed, and with a pledge not to reinvent or reproduce it once again. There are some other non-nuclear weapons that can guarantee deterrence based on non-nuclear weapons. And I would like to remind the address of the Republican, by the way, President Ronald Reagan at Los Angeles Town Hall in the year 1983, to resort to make a transition to defensive deterrence that threatens no one. And I should add, based on non-nuclear weapons, based on non-other weapons of mass destruction. That will be absolutely clear statement and clear remedy the world community may adopt very quickly. But one more comment to this Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Look, nobody from all 9 nuclear weapon states have already subscribed to that treaty at all. Without their participation, the treaty does not exist properly. It will exist actually, but it will not work. So let's persuade all 9 nuclear weapon states to ratify it and to agree to abolish and eliminate nuclear weapons for good, irreversibly and globally, by stages, verifiably, under strict international control. Patricia? Patricia, Sabrata?
Yes.
Yes. Someone is asking, would Russia be more accepting of US BMDS if the US adopted a no first use, no first strike policy?
You mean ballistic missile defense system?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interwoven issue, but it should be resolved together, simultaneously with each other, as a issue which is having interoperability and very close links. Because in May 2012, NATO member countries in Chicago has invented the Chicago Triad, so to say. It's my invention. It's not an official terminology. The Chicago Triad consists of nuclear weapons, missile defense, and conventional forces. So these three giants or three legs of weaponry should be debated and resolved all together as a one unit, not separately, not one by one. Patricia?
This is going back again to the U.S. position on foregoing that option to not agree to first use. And the questioner would like to know, so Subrata, they thanked you very much, but the questioner would like to know Vladimir's perception of why the U.S. thinks or states that it wants to forego the option.
You mean on no first use?
Yes.
Well, it's a mentality of the former and current U.S. leadership, both political and military. It's a traditional posture of the United States government from 1945. And I don't know how to persuade them to be more rational, to be more creative and flexible in resorting to Ronald Reagan formula in Los Angeles town hall to resort to defensive deterrence that threatens no one. Probably we together can do it. All of us sitting again and again and persuade. By the way, I have written a book, Evolution of the U.S. Strategic and Tactical Nuclear Weapons, and it's their employment in the 21st century. It has 1,200 pages. I can share it with the President Donald Trump, sorry, of any future American president, free of charge, as an intellectual souvenir. Yes, probably it will be very helpful. It has a lot of stories describing the U.S. nuclear capabilities.
Yeah, send that with a little bit of caviar.
Okay, and vodka.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Vladimir, I know you have gone completely dark in Kaliningrad and it's maybe difficult, but we do have a little more time and there may be a couple of more questions that could be, since we have you, is it possible for you to continue 10-15 minutes or that's too much?
Okay, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Trish, are there any other questions?
Not a question. There is a request for more information for your book, about your book, Vladimir. So if you could send that to me, I will post it on the website.
Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, Patricia, it's a commercial project. We cannot share it electronically by the internet, only as a hard copy, as a paper.
Are copies available in the U.S.?
Yes, in the form of a book only.
Yes.
Yes. Why not? But not electronically, unfortunately, because it costed us a lot. Because it is not only in Russian, it has been printed in English as well.
Perfect.
English option exists as well.
All right. If you could send that information, we'll post it for our.
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, the brief context, context, and some other details. Why not? Why not? It's quite possible. But let me come back to Moscow again, because I lack all my facilities, only a smartphone. Yeah. But
Yes,
nevertheless,
thank you so much, Vladimir, for doing this despite this very difficult situation from your travels. But since you have agreed to spend a little more time, there are two things I wanted to be clarified.
Yes, please go ahead, Subrata.
Your comment that Russia is interested in reviving the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, INF Treaty. And
yes,
in
sir.
that regard, obviously you have explained why the Chinese do not want to enter into any kind of negotiations, but are you contemplating a multilateral treaty or a modification of the existing bilateral treaty with some clarifications?
But I think that we have to start first between Moscow and Washington together. First, just to show example of goodwill and the commitment to not to deploy this kind of weapons anywhere on the globe, as we have already agreed in 1987 INF Treaty. Who knows? Probably after this step forward, other INF-capable country will join us. But without our first steps, American and Russian steps in this direction, nobody will agree to invent a multilateral INF treaty.
Thank you. Second point was regarding, you know, it's famously said that Soviet Union collapsed because of the economic burden brought on by the US Star Wars program, which was a colossal waste, but they say that's one of the reasons Soviet Union collapsed. But so now Russia, as I pointed out in the beginning, has a minuscule budget compared to the United States. And of course it has the technical capabilities. So my question is, how is Russia contemplating countering the US buildup both on the nuclear weapons with $1 trillion budget for the 30 years and a grand scale expansion of the missile defense? How is Russia going to counter this? Because it cannot obviously do what it did before in creating an arms race.
Yes, thank you very much, Subrata. There are two options. First of all, to modernize our strategic offensive arsenals and tactical nuclear weapons, plus invention and production and deployment of pinpoint accuracy hypersonic weapons, which is a fantastic weapon and can be also used on non-nuclear basis without nuclear charges. But it will nevertheless be a backbone of our non-nuclear deterrence policy.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think I've exhausted my questions. And any final question from anyone? Okay. So we want to thank you, Vladimir, once again, for doing this and giving us all this analysis and information that are so vital that in terms of starting a better relations between Russia and the United States, we have to have good information and not fake news going back and forth. So we certainly hope. One thing I would say, a little positive, is Joe Biden did say the other day that if he is elected president, that he will definitely extend the New START. He didn't say how long, although but he will extend the New START and start regular arms control discussions with Russia. So that's, at least it was said just 2 days ago. So I was at least pleased to hear that. Yeah.
Just in response, my dear Patricia and Subrata, well, thank you very much for your initiative, which is absolutely fantastic and terrific, and for your questions and comments, and for your introduction. Well, thank you very much indeed. God bless you and your family. And if this video show has been recorded, please send me afterwards the link of our conversation, and with your permission, we will place it on our website.
Wonderful.
On the website of the Moscow State Institute of International Relations.
Great.
Recently changed its name into University. Moscow State University of International Relations. With great pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you
My
so
pleasure.
very much.
Thank you very much. Take care.
We'll be in touch,
And
Vladimir.
Thank you for the audience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kind regards to all of you.
Yes, indeed.
Good luck.
Thank you for
good
attending.
luck.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Cheers.
audience
Thank
members, for taking
you.
part in this very important discussion today.
And we will post a recording within a day.
Yes, thank you very much indeed.
Thank
yes,
you.
Goodbye.
Take
yes,
good care.
Ciao. Hi,
Ciao.
take care. Thank you.
Bye. Okay.